How's it going, Principles of Management students? This is Mr. Argueta coming to you week number 2. It is cold outside, and I am finally getting around to getting your video out. I apologize for the delay. As you can tell, I'm a little on the casual side with a little hoodie going on because it's so cold today. Yesterday, we were closed, and it's a GNTC. Let me see if I can show you guys. It's a GNTC sweater, so I'm not too out of pocket here. But anyhow, it's cold outside. Yesterday, of course, we closed down the school because of the weather, due to inclement weather. And then today, I had a couple meetings in the morning and finally getting around to getting you guys this video. So what these videos are, just to give you an understanding, is a review of last week. I kind of take a look at what we've done as a class and then what needs to happen in regards to this week, and give you a preview of what to expect for next week. So, of course, last week was our first week. Really, you guys did a pretty decent job. I mean, despite the challenge with McGraw-Hill, I want to thank you for being able to navigate through that together. You guys did a wonderful, wonderful job. So appreciate you doing that and letting me know of any issues that might have came up. I think we should be clear to go here. So I will make sure that everyone that needs to be in this class is in this class. I think from what I took a look at, everybody was able to get licensed. There's a couple of questionable situations, but you should all be good to go at this point. So I appreciate you looking at it. I also want to mention that McGraw-Hill and Blackboard are two different, obviously, softwares. They're linked together, but sometimes there's a delay in synchronizing the grade. So every semester I'll get a student that says, hey, my grade doesn't come up for some reason. If you think it's a mistake, I'll go in there and I'll take a look, and see, the software, McGraw-Hill software is very, very advanced. It could tell me how long you've been on a question, where you went on each site, how long you've been in McGraw-Hill, how long it took you to do a test. I mean, how many times you clicked everywhere. It's an intense site, so I could see if you were able to get in or not. But it also, because it then tries to link to Blackboard, sometimes there's something. So what I do is I always tell students, give it a day or two to make sure that everything links up properly. And then after that, every Monday, what I do is I do a manual resynchronizing of everything just to make sure, like triple check that everything's good. So, but if you still feel like for some reason there's a grade that didn't load up properly for you, you went on and took a look in your McGraw-Hill, made sure that you have completed that task, then feel free to let me know. I'll check it out for you. But 90% of the time it's a linking issue with the two softwares, and we should be able to resolve that by, like I said, every Monday I resynchronize all the grades and make sure that everything has properly been credited to you. All right, that said, let's talk about my favorite part, discussions. So for the majority of you, you understood the process. If you have responded to the weekly video, this is the weekly video that I'm doing right now. This is the weekly update video I post every week. Like you guys post a thread, I post a thread too, and you guys responded to my thread. So I think we're on the same page. Most of you replied to my post, telling me about yourself. A lot of you mentioned about pizza, of course, all that great stuff. So I think we're on the same page. I think we're headed in the same direction. I give you basically a week to do your work, a week to catch up on any discussions. You have to reply to 2 classmates plus put your own post. So you should have a total of 4 interactions in a week in discussions, plus all your work. So last week was a pretty interesting week because, of course, we had all the issues with McGraw-Hill, but you guys managed to get through it. This week, though, we are fully rolling. Everyone understands the process. We're in chapters 3 and chapter 4. Chapter 3 really talks about the macro environment of business. So I want you to understand that in business, business does not exist on itself. So a lot of times I hear people who come to me and ask me for some business advice, and they'll say, I have a great idea. I want to start a business. And there's this concept called E-Myth. It's actually a book and a series, and it's the entrepreneur's myth. And people go on, and the example the book uses and the process uses is a process of like, I'm a great baker and I bake for all my friends and family, and they love it, and they always tell me I should start my own business. Well, E-Myth, the entrepreneur myth, is that just because you're good at something doesn't make you good at business. Business takes a certain set of skills, like does baking or construction or anything else of that matter. So the problem is that people think that because they're good at any task that they can just create a website or put it on social media, and all of a sudden customers are just going to flood to them and say, I want what you're doing. It doesn't work that way. If it did, business wouldn't be one of the biggest programs that most schools have. It takes a knowledge base, it takes an understanding. So business exists in a macro environment, and it cannot exist on its own. It's not a closed system. By closed, meaning that it's self-sufficient. Business needs an environment. Next week, you'll see, I'm giving you a preview of next week, you'll see what's called a SWOT analysis. I'm not going to talk too much about it because next week we'll talk more in detail. But a SWOT analysis really looks at that external environment. I could be the best chef in the world, but if no one in my community eats the food that I make, then that business is going to close down. I live in Calhoun, Georgia. Calhoun, Georgia has seen a lot of businesses open up. And guess what happens? They might have a great idea, but then it shuts down quickly. And people go, oh man, why did that shut down? Well, because the people in Gordon County do not eat that type of food, or they don't have that type of support, if you may. People always joke around and they'll say, well, if you want to succeed in Calhoun, you need to either open up a church, a chicken or burger place, or I forgot what else. But every other business won't survive. And they're kind of right, because the population in Gordon County has a certain behavior, culture, if you may. And they eat chicken. They love their chicken. So they love their burgers. So several years ago, I saw a restaurant open up. It was a French gentleman open up a French health, vegan and vegetarian place in downtown Calhoun. It lasted maybe 6 months. I went and I tasted the food. It was pretty good. Great alternative for healthy eating. But I immediately said, this won't make it here. They won't support it. People won't eat this. They want their fried chicken. They want their burger. And unfortunately, it closed. And several businesses have been that way. But you see, several businesses have lasted here for a long time, and you wonder why. And mainly because the concept of a environment really supports the business. But this week, we look at what chapter 4 has to offer, and it talks about the ethical perspectives, managing that and understanding how you make a decision. So in this discussion, you're going to read pages 74 and 76, and also pages 82 and 84, and do your own research. Go online, watch some videos about ethical perspectives. And what this is, I'm not talking about what's right and what's wrong. I'm talking about what your ethical perspective is. Excuse me. So in this discussion, we're exploring how you make a decision. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples for you to kind of think through the process, investigate your own thought process. And when you do this, and then identify the ethical perspective that fits your thought process, what you essentially go through mentally to make a decision. For example, you're a conductor of a train. A lot of people have seen either this game or there's a board game. I think it's called Trolley or something like that. But it's basically you're a conductor of a train and you're headed down this path. And the path has only a left or a right turn, and your brakes are no longer functioning. As the conductor, you're going to make a decision. You're going to go left, you're going to go right. But if you go left, there is a young child on the tracks. and you have no way to stop it, warn them. There's no other option. And I know people hate this feeling, but this is how you identify an ethical perspective. Your answer cannot be, well, I'll find out. There is no alternative. These are your only two options. You're either going to kill a child, or if you go right, you're going to kill 10 adults. How do you make that decision? And that's what ethical perspectives is, right? You're going to either kill a child and you're going to reason that in your mind. You're going to say, well, this is why I will decide that. Or you're going to go the other way. I apologize for coughing. You're going to go the other way and you're going to kill 10 adults. You have no other information. I'm purposely not providing that for you. But this is all the information you have. You're driving this train at a high rate of speed. You're going to make a left. You're going to make a right. What decision would you make? And you will analyze that in your mind and come up to a conclusion. And the purpose of that is for you to identify what your perspective is. Okay. The other one is the concept of, so there's a couple perspectives that I want you to focus on. One is called deontological perspective, deontology, universalism, basically that there is a certain value that you hold. Deontological perspectives are people that have a certain level of a higher power. The word Dio comes from the Latin word Dio, which in the Spanish version of that, that's Dios, which means God. Anyhow, people with a deontological perspective view that perspective as a higher being dictates what's right and what's wrong, and I just follow that rule. I don't question it. I follow that rule. And then there are other perspective, of course, that I want you to look at that's sort of the opposite of that. It's called utilitarian. I don't want to use the word opposite because people automatically go, that's a bad one. And I'm a believer in this and I follow this. No, it's just a perspective. Utilitarianism. And utilitarianism states that the greatest good for the greatest number of people is what basically should be decided. Now, I will tell you this. I would say most of us follow multiple perspectives depending on the information we have. No one can follow only one perspective because there's flaws to all of them. Okay, so for example, another question I would like to ask you is, I asked the question, is it ever okay to lie? And I'm not going to tell you anymore. I just want you to reason it. Is it ever a situation where lying is permissible, and when? And I want you to think through that, and I want you to try to identify your perspective on why you think it's okay or not. Okay. The last one is, if someone in your family, your children, your loved ones were starving and there's only one way to get food. There's no other option. And I know in the real world that doesn't exist, but that's not the purpose of this. The purpose is to challenge your thought process to identify your ethical perspective. So please do not answer these questions as, well, I'll do this other option. There is no option. This is it. This is the reason why we do this. Would you steal to feed a starving family member or a loved one? How do you conclude that? How do you get there? So anyhow, I'm excited to read your thought process. I'm excited to see what you have to say, and then we'll go from there. Guys, I hope you're having a good week. I know it's cold out there. I've had my fireplace running. It's freezing. I know I'm from Chicago and people make fun of me, but I left Chicago for a reason, because they told me the South was warmer. So you guys lied to me. Anyhow, as you can tell, my voice is leaving. I'm going to have a good cup of coffee, some water, and I hope everyone's staying safe and staying warm. Take care, guys. We'll talk to you next week. Have a good one.